Welcome, everyone. I'm David Paparelli, the co-founder of M-Cultivo, and this is The Cupping Table. Over the next few weeks, we will be hearing from some of the best coffee producers in the world. They'll be sharing their stories, insights, and outlook on specialty coffee and what makes their coffee so unique. My guest today, I'm happy to welcome, is Arturo Aguirre. I got to know Arturo's coffee before I knew Arturo. His farm, El Injerto, in Huehuetenango, won Cup of Excellence, and then it won it 7 more times. So it was just hard not to know El Injerto at that point. My wife's favorite coffee is also from Huehuetenango, so I need to know the best in Huehue just to keep her around. I happen to be drinking a cup of coffee. I'm lucky enough to have a cup of coffee from Huehuetenango that is El Injerto, and I'm grateful to have that as we talk to Arturo today. So welcome, Arturo, and where are you joining us from today?
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much, David, for the introduction. I'm Arturo Aguirre. I'm the 4th generation of the family working at El Injerto. I'm right now at Guatemala City. Central America, it's kind of far away from Huehuetenango, where the farm is. So thank you, David. Yeah, happy to be here.
Absolutely, yeah. And Arturo, Huehuetenango is how many hours? Do you drive to Huehuetenango? How far is that?
To Huehuetenango City is like 6 hours, and then another 3 more or less to the farm. So almost 9 hours if you want to go by car from the city.
So a lot of So very familiar with podcasts and the format, I'm sure, just to keep you going on that drive.
Correct. A lot of podcasts now. I'm happy to learn a lot. Yeah, that's at least. Yeah,
absolutely. So you mentioned you're a 4th generation coffee producer, and I know that your farm actually produced other things before you got into coffee. I'd be curious about, first of all, the weight that carries for you to be a 4th generation producer. What is that like, being born into that coffee world?
sure. Yeah. Well, it's nice. It's a big responsibility, but it's nice because I got the chance to learn a lot from coffee since I was a little kid. I spent all my vacations there at the farm with the people, with learning about coffee, learning about the farm. Yeah, we used to, at the beginning, there was no coffee at the farm. When my great grandfather started, they used to plant a lot of beans, right? Corn, also sugarcane, tobacco. And it was very late when my grandfather started to plant some plants of coffee when it started. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. And so you're born into this coffee world. You have, you're blessed just to have some of the best coffee land in the world, right, as a starting point. But you really took that and you really built it to the next level. Is that right? I mean, your coffee to become a winner in Cup of Excellence in what you've done today. What was your participation in that, and how did that look as you debated that among your family members, all these changes?
Sure. Yeah. Well, when I started working at the farm more than 20 years ago, when I returned from college and I started working with my father, I learned that we needed to do something different, right? If we wanted to make a name for us and to change things. And also I was curious about trying to work something different with the coffee, right? Trying to change things. So yeah, as you were saying, we are very blessed to be where we are. The mountains, the microclimate, the soil, it's incredible. But also I think it's very important for that things to work, to have a great team, right? I think great team is very important for our success. We have very great people at the farm, at our team, and that they really are motivated and they have the same vision as us, right? So that was the idea. I wanted to learn more about coffee, to be curious, right? To be all those things, and trying to get this to the next level, right?
Yeah.
That was the idea, to make a name for us. We needed to really focus on quality and not only um, uh, produce coffee as anybody else.
Yeah, for sure. And we've worked with we're fortunate enough to work with a lot of producers, and some of the producers we talk to are, and for good reason, very resistant to change. Right?
Right.
It's a very conservative space. Coffee can be. I think by its nature, it takes 3 to 4 years to get a plant in production. I mean, how do you iterate change quickly, and then processing methods and refining those can take a lot of time and effort. Um, how was it? First of all, what was the threat, the challenge, or the idea you had that made you know you had to change El Injerto to kind of progress into the future? And then did you face any resistance in making that with your team, your family, what's already been established? Because the farm was revenue generating, right? It was doing well, I presume, but you had bigger ideas.
Yes, correct. When I was studying and having my master's, I started checking and seeing some of these great coffees and some name of farms already mentioned in the coffee shop right at the very beginning. So that's what I wanted for us. That's what I wanted to see our name, and not only our name first, but at least Guatemala name, right at the
Yeah.
beginning. And it was also, and I understand that the only way it was by focusing really on quality. And that's when I started reading and learning and trying to copy a little bit from the wine industry. Um, at the beginning, my father was kind of nervous, right? But thank God he's a good visionary as well. So together we work with the ideas and the changes that we made at the farm, right? So to be honest, I didn't face a lot of challenge in that side with my father. He was very supportive with the new ideas. He was also, when I started working, he already had, for example, the dry mill. He didn't use it very much, but he already had the dry mill, so we can work our micro rods and work everything. He already had that idea, so uh, happy to have the same vision with my father since he started a long time ago.
Yeah, so he had a great foundation really established for you
Yeah.
to kind of move from, and then it was just being so unique to have. I would think to have any family member of an older generation place kind of full trust in the younger generation to take all that they've built to the next stage, right? Especially so early on, because you were 22, right? I mean, that's a ton of responsibility at 22. Um, After 100 years of coffee producing, right?
Correct, correct. Yeah, he was always focused on quality as well, but not to the next level. For example, he didn't separate varieties very much. He didn't separate lots or regions of the farm. That when I started, I separated the farm by regions, by varieties. So he was doing everything right, but we just needed a little bit step forward, right, to get to that level. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned, I have to ask because, this has been something interesting for me over the years, but you mentioned the wine industry and sort of some of the lessons learned. And maybe there's some overlap, but there's some absolute differences, right? On the surface, coffee and wine, especially coffee and wine, you'd think, okay, well, we can overlay these and coffee can go the path of wine directly. But from what I've seen over the years, it's sort of history doesn't repeat itself, it rhymes. If you know that Mark Twain quote, where it's not going to be exactly that. So I'd be curious of what you saw in wine that you thought would be, a guiding light for you in El Injerto, and then how has that evolved over the years in your mind? What did you have wrong, in other words, with that original idea?
Yeah, what I understand about what I liked about the industry, the wine industry, that they were really good at, well, focusing on quality and marketing the real farm, right? And that the credit was going back to the producer, right? In the bottles
Yeah,
and everything. Since that time, the name of the producer, the name of the region. So I really like that. I said that's the idea, right? To give the credit to the producer, let people know who's producing the
And
coffee, where it's coming from, and all the traceability, right? That was very important, and I thought what I wanted to do. But also, I understand quickly that it's a totally different product, right? Wine industry, you produce the wine, you bottle the wine, and you ship it. There's not much where to ruin the coffee, or there's not much more
yeah,
risk. Like
yeah,
in a producer, well, you depend then if you ship the coffee and everything goes right, you depend on the roaster, that the roaster gives a good roaster, and then you depend on the barista, right, that does a good work. So there are lots of steps during the process that the coffee could be ruined or could be enhanced, right, to give back the name to the producer. So it's a different industry. I also very like the the how to say the all the infrastructure of the wine industry, right? All the tanks and everything. That's my dream to someday have like a mill like that, right? So shiny, so clean, so beautiful, and that's what we try to do always at El Injerto, to have everything super clean, super in order, because that's what I admire about that industry, right?
yeah. Tell me a little about. You mentioned your team a few times, and I appreciate that. I think it's it's obviously hard to be the face of something like you are an Ellen Herto, but it does really take a whole team to do what you're doing, right? And free you up to have conversations like this on this. Someone's working really hard on your farm and your operation right now while you do this, right? And but with Ellen Herto, I think there's something unique here because you have it seems your team would have to have some kind of culture, call it culture of innovation. It might be a little corny, but a culture of innovation to keep winning these awards, to keep pushing boundaries, to try new varietals, new processing methods, increase the cup quality, in other words, and offer something unique in the industry, right? But so much of coffee is process, and not process in terms of processing method, but just following a process to deliver consistency. How do you balance those two at El Injerto?
Correct. Yeah, you mentioned something very important. That's what I started to do with the team. First of all, our team is people that, thank God, was born there at El Injerto. I played with those guys when we were young, soccer at the soccer field and everything. And thank God I like planted the same curiosity seed in them, right? So they are very open to new ideas. They are super curious. They know how to cook, same as I. So we do different things. And as I mentioned, my father was really open to give that opportunity to all of us. And we respect a lot of those guys. So we know that their ideas are very important. So before doing something, we always ask them, what do they think, right? What's their opinion? And then we try to work together, the whole thing. But that's it. Yeah, if we know that something is working, we really try to how to say, to order the process and to have the process really well established, but because we know that that's the key for consistency if you want quality in a long term, right?
Mm. And you do you have yeah, how many specific lots do you produce in a normal harvest season?
You mean lots by different varieties,
Yeah,
or
different varieties, different processing methods, something that you would say, hey, this is a unique lot. It's either a different variety or it's a different processing method, sort of some sort of separation in terms of this
well,
cup will be distinctly different, right?
okay, with varieties we have approximately 10 different varieties.
Okay.
um, and then with all varieties we play sometimes with different processes, but we focus more on washed coffees and some naturals. And even now, I'm focusing more on washed coffees. I'm going to back to basics. So we did all different kind of crazy things some 10 years ago about anaerobic and different fermentations and a lot of things. And at the end, now, after all those trials and all those years of experience, I really understood that, and we're going back to basics to really clean, nice, washed coffees. I think that that coffee is the one that people enjoy the most, and it has it's welcome everywhere, right? To many cultures. The other, it's good things to be curious and to try things, but we know it's a very small amount. And to be honest, we want to keep learning, to keep right, the curiosity open, but also to be more efficient, because we have every time it's more difficult, the labor. So we're going back to basics now, to really nice, clean wash coffees, right?
Was the yeah, I mean, it's interesting. There's a lot of producers out there right now, right? Certainly a lot of buyers, a lot of roasters that get kind of attracted to whatever the hot trend of the day is, right? And a lot of that has to do with processing method. Um, there are some unique varieties out there, of course, that people are trying, but you hear a lot about processing. So you've gone from trying, I'm sure, almost every processing method that you could with an experimental subset, and fallen back to actually off of El Injerto, washed coffees are phenomenal. I mean, I'm drinking one right now. It is phenomenal, right? What? How long did it take you to get back to kind of the foundation? And then how do you? I don't want to overload you with questions here, but how do you reflect on kind of all those trial and error that you ran with these experimental lots? Was that valuable, right?
Correct. No, sure, for sure, it was valuable. We learned a lot. All the team learned a lot, and we experienced a lot of different things, different flavors. But at the end, some of those trials, they were not, how to say, replicable, or we can are very efficient, right? And to be honest, it was only for a small amount, right? At the end, some buyers came to the farm and they come and they enjoyed really well, and they say, "Look, we want from this lot only 2 bags, or 3 bags," and that's really not efficient for us, and it's not sustainable for us to make those things, right? So thank God, El Injerto it's a medium farm, right? Probably not a large farm, but it's a medium farm. So trying to produce that quality coffee in a medium to large farm, it's a challenge, right? So, and we don't have the infrastructure to be doing a lot of micro lots everywhere, right? It's getting complicated for us. I was how to say, driving crazy to the wet mill manager, and everything was complicated. So, but we learned a lot, of course. But slowly we understood that people were asking us more for our washed coffees, right?
Oh, really?
I
Okay.
think,
So
yeah,
it really did align the whole thing. I mean, because you talk about that with other people, the chasing that innovation, and processing method is easier to chase than variety. I think variety is hard to chase,
right,
um, but you're saying, high risk, not very high reward from a total dollar figure, right, or total revenue figure, because they're
correct,
buying small quantities of this high risk coffee.
exactly,
And I hadn't thought about this, but it drives your team crazy, right? Because you're coming up with these, I'm sure I'm imagining this, sketching out 60-hour anaerobic process with all these different tweaks and all these different things,
exactly.
and you hand that to a washing station or a wet mill manager, and then that's legitimately a week's worth of work, right, on this small lot. I mean, is that what you lived
Correct.
through?
Exactly. Everything. That's 10, 12 years ago. I was doing all those crazy things and measuring everything, measuring pH, measuring everything, oxygen, measuring whatever you can imagine, right? And at the end, it was not sustainable. And we really now are focusing on really nice, as I was mentioning, clear, crystal clear wash coffees. And all our customers are happy, and that's sustainable for us. As you were mentioning, varieties as well. You have to understand which variety, right? We can't plant only geishas the whole farm, for example, because then it's not sustainable to sell the whole amount of geishas. We need to have some very nice, beautiful catuais, red catuais, some bourbons, some tipicas. So all of those different varieties, and they are very productive. The cup quality is really good, and you can sell, or people will like, I don't know, full container or half a container of that variety, right?
Yeah,
So
just, I mean, and so reliably high quality, clean coffees, right? And I think, when I think about Guatemalan coffees, that's a portion of what comes to mind. Is it's got uh it's got a decent amount of volume, probably a better quality than some comparisons, right? Or at least known for that. And then the consistency of it is impressive. Generally, there seems to be this cultural of consistency in Guatemala, and
Right.
it seems like you've adopted that. You did say that, which you don't always hear producers talk about this either, but this market-driven approach that you've taken, and this might be, um, this might just be from years and years experience, but because a lot of people when they start out, or a lot of producers, you hear, okay, well, if I just produce, the mentality is if I just produce the best coffee in the world, somebody will pay me a really high price for it. Pick that apart a little bit, because that's not necessarily the case in what I've seen. There's so many other elements in selling coffee, and taking a more market driven approach. Oh, buyers will buy a half a container of washed high quality Huehue Tenango coffee. I'll make that, right. That's simpler than I need to produce the best anaerobic coffee, right? But pick that thesis apart of I produce the best coffee in the world, so someone will surely buy it for a really high price. Why won't that happen?
Yeah, it's a good question, but I think yeah, we need to you need to balance everything. There's I don't know. I put the example because my father sometimes and my team and my family said let's plant more geishas and more super super high expensive coffees. And I said, look, guys, it's sometimes not sustainable. You need to understand the market. And I give you an example. For example, in a restaurant, how many bottles of I don't know blue label whiskey are they going to sell? Only one or two. How many black labels are going to sell? 100. And that's where the cash cow is of the products, right? So we need to understand which of our varieties is our, how to say, cash cow. We know that it's very productive. It's a really nice cup quality. Almost everyone can buy it, and that's what we really need to focus our 60-70% of our production to be some of those varieties, right? And then of course having some of the super special varieties, but we understand that those varieties are to, well, giving a name to El Injerto, giving a name to Guatemala, and also there are some special customers that they will buy those varieties, but not in huge quantities, right?
Yeah. And it sounds like you're still serving those to somebody, and using your restaurant example of Johnny Walker, right? And different labels of Johnny Walker. They still, I mean, they have a diverse portfolio just within that brand, because
Right.
they know if they have a high end, there'll be a halo effect to the low end, I'm sure, right? Uh,
Exactly.
do you experience that with El Injerto? Like, is it worth producing this really high end coffee, participating in Cup of Excellence every single year, doing auctions like this Dubai coffee auction we're working on together? Is that is is that worthwhile to provide the halo effect, or are you torn on if you would advise other producers to get into that game?
No, for sure, it's worthwhile for us. The auctions, Cup of Excellence, and all the other ones, of course, it has been very important for us. We have found a lot of great customers through that way. And as I'm saying, they have the same thing as a restaurant. They want the super high end coffee, but then they started asking me, "Look, do you have anything else? A really nice wash coffee that I can use for my blend, or I can use." Uh, to have more volume, and then we have that amount and we have that kind of coffee as well, right? So of course it has been very helpful. We have found many great customers through the auctions and through those very high end coffees, to all our other varieties as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and what so kind of hearing some of how you've evolved over the years, let's say, right? And Ellen Herto is involved with you. You know, your vision is starting to, I don't know, it's a lot of it's, I'm sure, been realized more than you know, and then I'm sure there's a lot more to do and a lot more to come. I'm sure you're not retired yet or thinking about that. But um, on this high end coffee, right? You've evolved to this point. What do you think now? Talk about clean cup, talk about high quality. What are the elements that go into a cup like I'm drinking that will go on auction? What are the key elements there that bring it to this sort of performance level in the cup?
Sure. I think there's for those coffees there's like a three-legged stool. You know, the microclimate is super important. Then genetics, right? Where the seed is coming from, where the coffee is coming from, and of course then the attention to detail throughout the process, right? So that's the human part that you need to really take care of every detail throughout the process to guarantee that the genetics will be there and the microclimate, right? So it's like a three-legged stool for me.
Yeah, and do you weight any one of those legs more than the other, or are they all essentially equally important? Like if you had to choose two and you couldn't have one in a perfect scenario, what would you choose?
Um, Probably microclimate. Microclimate is super important, right? You can have the very best genetics, the very best geisha, and super team, very focused on detail. But if you're planting the geisha, I don't know, 500 meters above sea level, you won't have the quality, right? So microclimate will be, of course, one of the most important, and probably then the teamwork, the attention to detail throughout the work. Yeah.
Yeah. And what I mean is it, and just another follow-up question on your team, because that seems to be, like you said, we talk about microclimate all day and what makes that special, but you're sort of born into the right microclimate,
Yeah.
right? I
Lucky.
mean, that sort of is just kind of a gift, a blessing that you have, and some people have that opportunity, others don't. The team, though, you had a foundational trust because you grew up with these guys, right? You grew up in that community. You spoke their language in terms of, I'm sure you have a second hand with your team that people in Guatemala City wouldn't even understand, right? Um, and so trust is foundational, but how do you kind of continue to kind of pour into that team and pour into that community to make sure that it does stay solid and it does, you don't have turnover. You don't have people moving to the city and quitting their jobs and trying to get to the States, or all these other migration problems that we're facing today. How do you keep people and keep them motivated?
Correct. Yeah. Well, but for the team, for the very special guys, well, being there with them, right? Working at their side, right? And also trying to educate them, right? We bring them to different trips for them to see different farms. That's very important, and they also that's motivating for them to see other farms, right? For us to explaining them and learn of our different processes or other farms that we know that they are working really nice. Um, Showing them and teaching them, for example, how to cup, how to roast. That's what they really enjoy, and trying to show them different techniques, as I mentioned, in different trips that we've made, right? But still, we have a lot of problems with migration, not with the very the highest people in the team, but the welders, carpenters. Many people have been migrating. So we're doing some changes at the farm. We're always trying to innovate and doing some changes, but unfortunately now we are changing some of the coffee cultivars to forestry. For example, the area that are very far away, that is very complicated to
Eh,
reach. We are planting more forestry. So we're planning to have probably a smaller farm, but much more efficient and much more closer, and hoping to produce the same or even more with some changes that we're doing and trying to learn different techniques. Yeah,
wow. So you're reforesting parts of your farm in order to reduce production to make it more manageable under the team that you have available to you to pick that coffee, to process that coffee.
correct.
That's how you've had to kind of change your operations with this migration problem.
Correct. We're changing many of the pruning system, the shade control. We're changing all of those things to try to work with less people, and but we are hoping to be very productive as well, so much more efficient. That's the idea, right?
Yeah, so reduce the land size planted, but keep production. Um, uh, as high as possible, maybe roughly the same, just way more efficient. Is that the goal?
Correct. That's the goal.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's an amazing project. I haven't heard that from people. You hear coffee dying on trees now, right? Because there's no pickers available. Really common in Guatemala and the rest of the world. And it's just sad to hear. But I love the positive spin that you've taken on that, which is, well, we'll focus on reforestation, stewarding the land, and then we'll focus on making these smaller areas more productive. That's incredible. And so, um, so with your team and your legacy and philosophy around managing them, what do you building them? What do you hope to see them kind of grow into? Because I get where you're moving from, and I've heard people describe this as, for a team member, you want to provide them autonomy, mastery, and purpose, in order to move, and in order to basically keep them motivated, keep them working. Is there sort of a growth pattern for your best team members that you try and encourage, or is it um, El Injerto is just a phenomenal place to work, and I would happily do that the rest of my life in Huehuetenango because it's my community, right?
Sure. Yeah. But we're always trying to do different things, working on different projects. For example, some of the teams, now that we produce our own energy, we generate our own electricity. So for example, one of the team members, he didn't have any studies about electricity, but he really liked electricity. Now he's a very good electrician, and he can work many things, and he can connect motors, and he can change different things in the not only the motors or in the mill, but also in the houses of the workers. So he learned a lot, and he knows about electricity. So they are happy learning about different things. Now that we have coffee shops here in the city, we have 5 coffee shops in the city now, and so we bring them also here, and they are trained as baristas, and they really like that thing as well, right? So try to give them different things to learn, to always keep learning, to keep them motivated, right? And of course, pay them really well so they are happy and will continue to want to learn and try different things, right?
Yeah, that's great. I mean, someone who has a full-time job is, I'm making this up, but as a wet mill manager, and then you allow them to kind of do electricity products on the
So
side to sort of build. Yeah, I mean, that is unique from a leadership perspective, because a lot of people would just say, "Oh, that's a waste of time." Focus on your job, and it wouldn't listen to them and what they were trying to do and what they need. So to kind of give them the ability to explore, I think is great. And coffee farms, I mean, like you said, you need carpentry, you need electricity. I mean, you almost need every single profession
correct.
available to run a coffee producer. You run technically, I don't know, 25 different businesses almost.
Correct.
So there's something for everybody in that, right? Hard for you to manage, but something for everyone.
Correct. Yeah, mechanics, welders, everything. You need a lot of things in there. Yeah.
Yeah, takes a little bit of creativity. You did bring up coffee shops, and I would be curious because we named this podcast the Cupping Table out of this idea of where the cupping table to me is almost the climactic event in coffee. It's the coffee hits the table, you get to taste it. So there's kind of a climactic event there and tasting the coffee. It's where things like God in the cup happen, right? Um,
Correct.
it's also, what I think is unique about it is it's where buyers and producers meet. So some honest conversations can happen, and they really are on par with each other at that table to try and evaluate that. But you mentioned coffee shops. Not a lot of producers have coffee shops. They have access to coffee shops, but you learn a lot from cupping your coffee on the cupping table. Every best producer I know is a really great cupper. So they know how to reform. Have you learned anything from your coffee shops and kind of that end, roasting and producing coffee for the end consumer, that you've then taken back to the farm to improve your production?
Sure. Yeah. Well, just a little bit of story. We started the coffee shops, I don't know, like 15 years ago, because when I visited our customers, well, in the States or in Asia, I always remember why there's not a great coffee shop in Guatemala City, right? All the
Yeah.
coffee was being shipped away, and we keep only the really crappy coffee, right? So
Right.
that was the idea. That was the venture to try to do something different, and we started giving here to the Guatemalans the different varieties, the different processes as well. Yeah, it's incredible how the how the people are appreciating much more now a great cup of coffee here in Guatemala, and it's very motivating for us, right? And we feel very happy that we were part of that in our country. But yeah, we learn a lot. We learn a lot about, for example, the tastes that people enjoy here in our country. We know that every country is different. We send, for example, the same variety to the States or to Japan, and they roast totally different, right? The roast profile is totally different. They appreciate different flavors, and also in here, right? So, and going back to the roasting and back to the process as well. As you know, for example, here in Guatemala, they really don't like the natural processes. I try to doing blend with natural, try to show them why the natural, but they really don't like natural, for example, though. So we know that in here, it's again back to wash, really clean wash coffees. Um, yeah, but it's interesting about varieties as well. Which varieties they like, they appreciate. Some of the Guatemala here, they don't even like the geisha. I'd say it's too floral. It's like a tea or something. So they really don't enjoy it, right? So it's interesting to learn those things from different people, yeah, from the customers.
Yeah, and so I mean, you kind of modify to the customer base. You've got a lot of experience traveling around the world and figuring out what those profiles and those varieties, those processing methods need to be for each market. Can you tell us a little bit about some of those differences that you've experienced, some of the surprises that you've been through? You mentioned Japan, right? I might like something different, roast different than Australia, than the U.S. Be curious of kind of your market overview of what of the what are the kind of the major high specialty markets? What do they like? And what was a surprise to you as you visited?
Sure, yeah. For me, for example, the Japanese they roast a little bit dark for for my how to say for what I like. It's a little bit darker. Um, the States is a medium. It's a nice medium. Well, the Nordics they really really how to say uh, um, bright, very
Light
not
roasted, yeah.
light roasted, yeah, very light roasted. So it's interesting how the different how the same coffee can taste different because of the roasting, right? And how they like it and they appreciate it that way, right? So that's what they liked it. So you need to be how to say respect the thing, right? I can go and say, look, I like this coffee. You should roast it different, right? Because it's their culture, it's their way, and you need to respect that, right? So sometimes you want
Absolutely, yeah.
to say something, but it's better to respect how they do it, right?
Is it? Yeah. So, kind of putting a spin on that question a little bit. If a Japanese buyer is visiting your farm, do you prepare a different cupping table for them than you would prepare for a Swedish buyer or a buyer from the U.S.?
Not really. To be honest, we try to have the same table, the same roasting profile for everyone, right? Because I think that they are not the coppers are the ones that really change their profile when they're copying in these countries and everything, and then when they take it back to them to their country, that's where they change the profile. Or they know and they understand and they go to the same level of everyone. I think.
So the sample roast is consistent. I mean, that's good practice generally. It's good that
Yeah.
you're not trying to hide things from buyers. And then
No. No.
the varieties and the processing methods are generally the same too on that cupping table.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay. And then you leave it up to basically their technique, their imagination, their skill set to morph that coffee into what it needs to be for their market. That's not up to you. That's up to them.
Correct. Well, we try now with the link roaster. It's very interesting. And then you can change if it's natural, if it's washed, and then they change a little bit the
Yeah.
profit, right? But to be honest, it's for them, for the coppers to really understand and how to say, look into the future, how this coffee is going to taste with the way they roast normally other countries. Yeah.
Do certain buyers gravitate towards one variety, one processing method, a different altitude, a different microclimate, or another? Have you noticed that in different countries, or is it really all over the map? I mean, kind of a high altitude washed geisha, everybody loves, and
Correct.
and it's that sort of thing. I mean, have you seen differences, or is it good coffee is good coffee, and markets buy it and change it themselves?
Correct. Good coffee is good coffee. Everyone will like a very nice high altitude geisha wash, for example. Everyone will enjoy that. So the majority, 90 plus percent, right? But then at the end, sometimes it's too expensive for them, or they say it's too expensive for their customers, so they don't end up buying it. But they will, of course, very like red Catuai that is really nice as well, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's everywhere, right? They have
Is
customers
that
for whatever.
Does that we talked about that halo effect before on high specialty, right? So talking about this high altitude washed geisha, right? And it's on the table. Does that change do you see a change in a buyer when they're cupping through these coffees and they hit that kind of high altitude washed geisha, and then they sort of have to back off that into a Catuai that's really fantastic too, but it's their third or fourth favorite because of price tag? Do you see that happen in real time?
Yeah, sometimes you can see it. You can see the different, and then you need to be careful with that, right? Because if you put those geishas, and you know that the customer maybe they are not going to buy that geisha or a nice amount, so sometimes I don't put the geisha there. I put the Catuais and I put the other one because, of course, the geisha is going to be totally different, and probably the Catuai we will feel it not as good as it is, right?
Yeah, but it's more so for you, because this is what I'm trying to get to, which I think you just answered the question, which is for you, when you're thinking about buyers come taste your coffees, come to your farm, you're really thinking about what their market or what their customer, the prices that they can consume as a business, right?
Right.
There's a cost structure for every business. There's a margin for every business, and margins are really important in coffee because they're usually very fine, right? And so, very easy to go out of business in coffee. So
Right.
with a buyer, you're more thinking in terms of price ranges on that table than you are in thinking of varieties or qualities or whatever. Now, the price ranges are obviously correlated with that, but you're
Correct.
not thinking Asian buyers really like fermented coffee, so I'm going to put fermented coffee on the table. You're thinking, well, Asian buyers generally target this price range, so I can have some fun within that price range to get the right coffees on the table. Is that your approach?
Correct. I try to investigate the buyer beforehand, right? So I know which coffees are they buying and which more or less the prices and what quality are they buying, right? So that's what I try to put on the table when I have the opportunity to really learn and what they're looking for. Yeah.
Are you just going on their website and looking at their bag prices and then backing into the green coffee price from there? Is that, or are you calling importers and calling people, or like, do you call around? How do you research these guys
No,
before
yeah, in the
prepare for
website
the
or in
visit?
the auctions, I try to see if I can see their name or something in the auctions, if they are participating in their website, if I can find the website and see everything. So I try to investigate a little bit, yeah. And
Yeah.
sometimes I ask them as well. I ask them, look, what coffees and what quantities are you interested in, right? So also that's important as well, yeah.
Yeah, that's a novel approach. I think not many people take that approach, which is really important. But people get shy or they feel it's uncomfortable, but so important. Just, I mean, the easiest thing to do is just ask the customer. They'll usually tell you. They'll just tell you exactly
Right.
what they want, what they're looking for, price ranges, that sort of thing. And
That's
it's
right.
not a negotiation. It's just literally, okay, I can
Correct.
produce a product of that type within that price range,
Correct.
and
Yeah. It's an
they should
honest
buy it.
it's an honest conversation and just asking. Yeah, it's not nothing wrong with it, right?
Yeah, but I do like the market research component. I don't think enough people do that. Part of the problem is producers, roasters. They have the same problem. They don't know who their customer is, right? They don't know the characteristics of their customer. So, if you were going to describe one of your customers, what would be the key characteristics that would stand out to say, okay, this is an outstanding customer, fits the profile perfectly. This will be a long-term relationship for us.
Um, it's a good question, but yeah, first of all, we try to negotiate directly with the roaster. We have some customers that are really nice and great importers as well, that they have helped us a lot to get inside a country. But yeah, we try to see their history, how long have they been in the market, what coffees are they buying, are they really focusing on quality and trying to really give the credit back to the producer and the variety and the country, all of those little things, right? Those are very, very important. And also if they participate in auctions, we know that auction it's something that they're important because it's a very expensive price, but it's good for the producer to put the name of their farm on the spot, and also it helps to give back to the farm, right? With those auctions, we've been able to give back to the farm in technology, in infrastructure, in the way of living to our workers, right? So it's important. And to be honest, I wanted to give a small history of why I started doing the auction like 13 years ago, right? Because we have a very great coffee, for example, and some customers came, Japanese, for example, they cupped the coffee and it was great, and he offered me a price, and for me it was a great price, and I said, okay, yeah, for sure, take it. And then 2 days later, a Korean customer came and he cupped this. I put the same coffee on the table and he cupped it, and it's great, but it's already sold out. I say it's sold, and how much did you sold it for? I don't know, 10, for example. I would have given you 12, and then you scratch your head, right? And I don't know, an American came 1 week later and I would have given you 15. And I said, Jesus Christ, this is. So we need to find a way how to put the coffee that the market will put the price, right? And
Yeah.
and those auctions that really worked really well at that time, 13, 14 years ago when we started doing the auction, right?
Yeah. And yeah. I mean, obviously price discovery is a huge element of auctions, but it's also sort of crowd in competition. There's an art to it. Obviously we're very biased because, we run auctions, but I do think it's an exciting area of the industry that deserves a little bit more exploration,
For sure.
from a lot of people. So yeah, I mean, 13 years ago, that almost is an auction. What you had these buyers show up, they were naturally like placing bids and kind of competing for this coffee.
Correct.
Since then, yeah, I mean, you've been doing this a very long time. How have auctions evolved for you in getting the most efficient price and getting the right buyers involved?
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, we started, well, as I told you, almost 14 years ago. And it's been changing in different ways. The quantity of the lots, the different varieties, the more specific, how specific or how much you explain about the lot, of the details, about the lot, of the coping profiles. To be honest, I've never put copying scores in our auction because I think it's very subjective, right? So
Yeah.
we don't put any copying scores. We let the customers to try the coffee and give them the scores. I don't want to be, how to say, biased to misconcept or something if I put my scores, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but they've changed in the quantity, in the varieties. 14 years ago, you could sell a very nice bourbon through an auction, and now it won't be possible, right? Everything is geishas and super high end geisha, so everything has been changing, and of course the quantity of the lot as well, right?
Yeah. And yeah, what, so not a lot of people know this, and some people are new to the auction space, but when you're designing a lot for auction, what's the ideal lot for an auction? What's the quantity? What do you try and variety processing, but what do you try and look for on El Injerto to say, yeah, that'll be a great auction lot. This is how we should do it.
Yeah, first the variety. Of course, the variety, the altitude where the coffee is planted, and then we know that we needed to process it really, really well. Different regions of the farm. We know that customers really like to have different options, even though if it's a geisha, but it's a geisha from Las Milpas or la geisha from Peña Blanca or Los Pinos, so they want to have something different from their neighbor or from some of our customers, right? So it's important to differentiate the area of the farm, the altitude of the farm. So we know where those areas are now that we've been trying and copying those coffees, right, for many years.
Generally, geisha, what altitude are we talking about here in terms of range?
The geishas was from 1850 to 1920, more or less.
Okay, so generally geisha, 1800-meter plus in terms of altitude, and then some variation or diversity in the farms or the plots that those coffees are grown on. And then what are you looking at in terms of, hey, this is the right quantity for this lot, and this is the right quantity, this is the right reserve price, that sort of
Yeah,
thing.
we know that micro roasters are the one that are more interested right now in this type of super coffees. So
Yeah.
all the way from 50 pounds to 150, and the maximum is probably 200 pounds. For example, the mocha that we produce a very small amount. We sell it on 50-pound boxes, and that's it. We now know that many producers or some other people that are doing auctions are auctioning 3 pounds or 6 pounds, and they sell for a very high price. But I think it's not very sustainable for us. As I was explaining, we prefer probably not as a higher price, but to be able to pack it well and to be more able to, for our logistics to be easier, right?
Absolutely. And you know, on that auction journey, right? So you started, did you participate in the first Cup of Excellence in Guatemala?
We participated, and with a Bourbon, and we ended up being, I think, sixth place or fifth place, something like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
And were you surprised, or were you, I mean, or did you assume that you were going to do that well and it just worked out?
Oh, we were happy because at the end, because everything was new, we just picked the same lot as we normally ship to our customers, and we send it to the auction. So we were happy that we were granted with that award, even though we didn't do anything special. Now, of course, we know that to be able to have a super coffee, we need to treat it a little bit different, right?
And when you win something like Cup of Excellence, get first place in Cup of Excellence, what was your reaction the first time you got there?
Wow, we were super happy, very proud. We really shared with all the team, and everyone was very happy and excited, right? It
Did
was
that change? I mean, did that really change your business after that? I mean, was that kind of an upward trajectory moment, or was it a step in the right direction, kind of a building block in the right direction? How do you see
yeah,
that?
it was a step. It was a step that it was assuring us that we were doing the right thing, and we just gave us more energy to be more curious and to really focus more in the quality and in the process, because we know that people were appreciating that attention to detail that we were having with our coffees. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, after winning it, after getting first place seven or eight times, is that what you said? Seven more
Oh,
times, 8 or 9 times, I think is
right.
what you said.
More or less.
Is it? I mean, do you still have the same reaction, or is it sort of an expectation now that if you don't win, you're kind of disappointed?
No, we're happy always if we continue to if we win. Of course, everyone is super happy. We feel very proud. We try to do different things, right? We don't always submit the same variety or the same process, because that's another interesting thing for us to see. Not only
Yeah,
geisha, but we've won with Bourbon, with Pacamara washed, with Pacamara natural, and now with geisha washed. So it's interesting to see that the different varieties, same process, but the same attention to detail can reach that level, right?
Yeah, it really is unbelievable. I mean, same with a lot of changing processing method, evolving things, but you see a lot of the same variety, right? To be able to not just win, but win, first place with multiple different varieties. I don't know. I don't know if I've never ever heard of another producer really doing that. Certainly not so many times. You might be, I mean, you tell me, you might be the most awarded in that area. And that would have been an impossible task to take on if you told me that 15 years ago.
Thank you. Yeah, we feel very proud and we're surprised about it, but we know that our process and everything is working really well. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, I could keep talking to you, Arturo. I mean, I love the knowledge, the experience that you share. I will ask you one more question that I'm curious about. You being a fourth generation coffee producer, is the legacy that you hope to leave to your kids and to your community as you think about the next sort of, call it 20 to 40 years, if we're so lucky to be here at that point.
If I understand well the question, if it's the legacy, it's important to me. Sorry.
The legacy that you would like to leave
Ah,
for your family and your community after leading El Injerto as the fourth generation. What do you want to see? What do you want to see in the next 20, 40 years, maybe 50 years for El Injerto?
right. It's a good question. Yeah, I think what I want to see is to for the next generation to really try to respect the environment, respect the farm, respect the people, and of course respect the coffee that has given us that name, right? That has given us that 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 legacy that you were mentioning, right? For them to really keep on on focusing on that and to learn and to really remember what is important and what is those things that have been very important to us to to get us where we are, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, well, I love hearing that your kind of journey through specialty coffee is a unique one, I think, in that you've been open to change. You came in sort of ready to innovate, ready to make changes, blessed with great land, with sounds like a great relationship with your dad to be able to foster El Injerto into the next stage, and then the flexibility to sort of change back and go back to the foundation, the core elements of what it is to produce a great coffee with sort of a new perspective and a new mindset. And so, really, really excited to talk to you today and just learn more about El Injerto, hear your story, and really excited to take all that legacy, all that tradition, and all that innovation, whether you call it that or not, to the Dubai coffee auction on February 10th and 11th. And we hope to represent you well in that auction, and we just appreciate your partnership as we participate. And then and we look forward to doing more of these things like this with you, Arturo. So I hope that this relationship continues and that we're able to work together in the future, because I know we'd love to be a small part of your very rich story that we heard today. So thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you, David, and thank you for doing these kind of projects, different projects, something very nice and interesting and something different. So thank you very much as well. And yeah, happy to participate and happy to partnership with you.
Absolutely. Well, we will talk to you soon, my friend. And that's all for today.
All right. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye
Bye.
bye.